Hello, everyone. The stream will be starting soon. The stream will be starting soon.
Where
Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How's it going? Let me turn off lo-fi hip-hop beats to study and relax, too. Does anyone know a good source of, like a royalty-free radio station that, won't result in the video getting muted? I'd love to hear about it if you do. It is an Adam Conover. Hello, Jay Van Allen. Welcome, welcome. Welcome, Flying Furets. Welcome, KT Gremlin Teeth. KT Gremlin Teeth says, if you're Massachusetts, vote yes on Prop 1 and 2, ranked choice voting. Oh, I didn't hear about this. Ranked choice voting and allowing indie mechanics to access telematic info. Those both sound pretty good. Wait, let's look that up. I'm actually kind of curious. Let's jump right into it here. Oops, wrong window. Massachusetts Prop 1. Oh, that's the wrong one. Here we go. Ranked Choice Voting Initiative enacts ranked choice voting for primary and general elections for state executive officials, state legislative, federal congressional seats, and Senate seats, and certain county offices. That's great. Ranked choice voting is much better than non-ranked choice voting, than first past the post voting. Actually, a good friend of mine studied this. She was a mathematics and political science major, and she studied in college why ranked choice voting is better. And the reason is it reduces people's need to strategically vote. So the way it works is, this is really great. We're off to a really great start here. Ranked choice voting is an electoral system by which voters rank candidates by preference on their ballot. If no candidate wins a majority of first preference votes, then the candidate with the fewest first preference votes is eliminated, and then those votes are also eliminated, lifting the second preference choices indicated on the ballots. So, here's a pretty good video. Is this video going to explain it?
Okay, Maine, the time to vote for changing your way of voting is here. Question 5 on the November 8th ballot looks to establish a new system for the state called ranked choice voting. This new method would have voters rank all candidates in order of preference. So if 3 candidates running for office, you would rank your first choice with a 1, second choice 2.
My sharing means is not good. Here we go. This is better.
Second choice 2, and third choice 3. To decide the winner, officials would only tally the 1s on each ballot. If a candidate receives 50% or more of all votes, they win.
I'm really
quiet. If no
quiet.
candidate earns 50% of total votes,
Turned it up.
the candidate with the least 1 votes would be thrown out, and a second round of counting would begin. All those who voted a 1 for the eliminated candidate would have their ballots recounted to see who they selected as their number 2 vote. Those number 2 votes would then be added to the totals for the remaining candidates, deciding the winner. Think ranked choice voting is a good idea? Vote yes. Bad idea? Vote no.
So the way this works is, the reason this reduces people having to vote strategically. See, what you want in an election system is you want people to not have to tweet. What do you want people to, let me start over. What you want in an election system is you don't want people to have to vote strategically, right? If someone is saying, well, this person represents my views, but I don't want to vote for them because I don't think they can win, I'll vote for this person who doesn't represent my views as well. Then we would see that as being like a bad thing in the election system, right? Because we want people to vote for the person who actually represents their views, because we want an election ideally to match the views of the people who are voting, correct? So if people are voting for someone who doesn't match their views, that's prima facie bad, okay? Strategic voting causes this problem when people say, well, I can't vote for the person I want, the person who actually represents my views, because they won't win. I got to vote for the other person instead. What this does, ranked choice voting, is it makes it possible to vote for the person who you really like, but who won't win first, right? So let's just take an example. Say you I'm trying to think of an example from the last primary. Because Bernie actually is not a very good example of this, because people who voted for Bernie did believe that Bernie could win. But let's just say that you're in the 2000 election, and that's the first election. I actually didn't vote in that election because I was 17, but it was the first election I was really conscious for. That was Bush, Gore, and Ralph Nader, right? Now, a lot of people didn't vote for Ralph Nader. They're like, I agree with Ralph Nader, but I'm frightened of George Bush, and I want so I don't want him to become president, so I don't want to take a vote away from Gore, right? Now, enough people ended up voting for Ralph Nader that that election got very complicated. But let's just imagine that it's still the case that Ralph Nader's vote total was suppressed because there were people who agreed with him but voted for Gore instead. And so we actually didn't get a very good measure of how many people in the country really thought Ralph Nader represented their views. So the way runoff voting would work is you would vote number 1, Ralph Nader, number 2, Al Gore, right? And so everyone would tally their votes, and then the person who has the least number of votes would, let's just say that's Ralph Nader. Let's say Ralph Nader ended up getting 25% under that scenario. He would be dropped off, and then everyone who voted for Ralph Nader, their number 1 would be axed off, and instead their vote would be tallied for Gore, so their vote for their second choice would be able to count. So this is a really cool, progressive in the best sense of the word, because it's really informed by like science and then coming up, political scientists agree this is one of the best forms of voting. So it's really cool that this is on the ballot in Massachusetts, that in Massachusetts you might be able to vote this way. Now, it looks like, according to this, it's going to primary and general elections for state executive officials, state legislators, federal, congressional, and Senate seats, and certain county offices beginning in 2022. So it wouldn't actually be for presidential elections, it would be for state elections, but that's still really cool. The Glitcher 32 says, "My mom hates you, but I love you." Great. CGP Gray does a great job of explaining alternative voting. CGP Gray is too good of an explainer, and I can't watch his videos because they make me jealous because the explaining is so good. I'm just kidding. But, we can't go watch an explainer video from someone who is an even better explainer than me on my learning stream. I'm trying to do it myself. I'm trying to learn this shit myself. Can I watch Patriot Act? I mean, I have seen it. You mean the one on Netflix? We're just hanging out here, folks. This is not a tight, scripted explainer. I've got it all laid out for you. This is us going through it and learning about it together, remembering it together, having a good time. Let's talk about the Electoral College. Elections coming up. You've heard about it. By the way, can we just talk about this really quick? The flag of Massachusetts is so fucked up. Can we get... How many times do I have to click on it here? Look at how fucked up this flag is. I mistyped Massachusetts. Flag of Massachusetts. Look at this flag. It's an arm about to behead a Native American. This guy's about to be killed. This is horrible. Bad stuff. You've been fighting to change it forever, man. What do you want to change it to, K2 Gremlin Teeth? I mean, it's okay. A Dunkin' Donuts cup, but besides the point. All right, yeah, but Dunkin' Donuts does just own New England, doesn't it? It's like the fucking Guinness of New England. I remember going to Ireland when I was in high school and being like, man, Guinness just like bought out this whole country. The whole place is just one big Guinness gift shop. And I guess same thing for Dunkin' Donuts in Massachusetts, right? Hey, America runs on Dunkin'. The Daily Show did an episode on this and actually got the flag changed. I don't think they did because I think this is the flag still. Historical and related flag. Got a bunch of, now look at this flag. Just a nice tree. How about this? Ooh, the naval and maritime flag just says an appeal to heaven on it. That's a weird flag. We should really learn about more trivia on this stream, but I was trying to do something election related. Thought we could get some of the viewers in. Let's talk about the Electoral College. Here it is. You've heard about it. You're like, we got it. This is how we vote. This is what CNN's going to be talking about. This is what 538 is fucking named after, the number of electoral votes in the Constitution. Not in the Constitution. The 538 is not mentioned in the Constitution, but the number of electoral votes in the country. Now, the Electoral College has a really fucked up history, and it has even more fucked up results in the present day, and we're going to learn about them together. We're going to spend a little bit of time diving into the history. I hope you enjoy yourselves. And mention it in the chat if you want to hear something specific. If you've got something to add about the Electoral College, and I'll toss it in as well. I love this, Javen Allen. Adam, can you please explain what the Electoral College is? Okay, well, we're here on the Wikipedia page. I know this. I don't need to read it off the Wikipedia page, but it just helps us, highlight some of these things. It's a body of electors established by the United States Constitution, which forms every 4 years for the sole purpose of electing the president and vice president of the United States. It's literally a bunch of people who are appointed very briefly, and then they get together and they cast their votes in something that is literally called the Electoral College. Now, look at this. I didn't even realize this. We had a bunch in the 2016 Electoral College. We had a bunch of weird votes. So here's how it works. Whichever party gets the most votes in the state, that party then appoints its electors, which are, usually like prominent local political people, like well-connected, the sons of governors, people like that. And then they cast votes. They literally show up and cast a vote for president. They cast, it's supposed to work like, here in Utah, if Utah goes for Trump, then they will cast 6 electoral votes for Trump. So every state is winner take all. Now, in 2016, people were really campaigning for the electors to vote for other people, and it looks like some of them actually did. John Kasich received 1 vote. Ron Paul received 1 vote. Faith Spotted Eagle received 1 vote. Was Faith Spotted Eagle running for something? Oh no, she was she just received 1 electoral vote. Got it. She's an activist. I see. Here, should we just start by watching the Adam Ruins Everything video about the Electoral College? Let's do it. This is like one of the very first Adam Ruins Everything videos we ever made. We made this in I love that the fucking Crowder video shows up. Guy's been skating off my views for years.
4 years, we hear the words electoral custom. It really is.
Now let me just say, this was year 1 hair. All right, the undercut was too extreme, and also I wasn't buttoning my jackets yet. So I look at this and I cringe a little bit. I'm like, man, I really have refined my look since this video. Why can't I go back and redo my haircut? Yeah, peak hair was really high at this point. This is the first or second episode. No, it's not that early, but this is in the first. This is in the first 5 or 6 episodes, I think. Do I keep the suits? I do, but this is not a particularly good suit. This actually matters far more for the Senate. In the Electoral College, it does matter. It does matter to an extent. But, it's nothing like the Senate, where in California and Wyoming have the same amount of power in the Senate. At least California has more power than Wyoming. The people in Wyoming have proportionally more power than people in California. But California is still the largest state in terms of the Electoral College. In the Senate, they're all equal, which is really fucking bizarre. That doesn't make any sense. And the reason it doesn't make any sense is let's be clear about this. People in California and Wyoming live in the same country and have the same interests to a large extent. The people do not think of ourselves as being divided up into states almost like nations where, we want at least I don't think of myself this way. And I think most people don't. You don't think of your state as needing to come out ahead of other states, right? We really have, since the founding of the country, developed a much more, unified view of ourselves as Americans rather than I'm a Virginian first and foremost. You know what I mean? So, the idea that the states would be in competition with each other this way, and that, Wyoming would need protection from California is somewhat ludicrous, because, California is not trying to fuck with Wyoming, and even if it did, the important metric is the number of people who live in the state, right? We care about every American counts equally. Having a hard time explaining this, but if a couple 100,000 people live in one state, a couple million people live in the other state, well, if the largest state gets more attention, it should, because of the more people live there, and each person is their own ethical unit. You know what I mean? It's really hard to explain like my basic values on this. but okay, so my point is the thing about the size of the state is not as important here as it is in this. This was a really great thing that was done. Ooh, yes, and it was licensed under the Creative Commons, so we were able to use it legally here. So I wonder if this is still up. saltwaterwitch.com/blog. And then what was it? /map? Oh, question mark tag equals map. What? Question mark tag equals map. Nope. saltwaterwitch.com. I guess this doesn't exist anymore. Let's see. Chris Howard, purple map. Here we go. This is what I'm looking for. Yeah, so the point is here. This is what it looks like if you look at the results via county rather than by state. And even this is somewhat misleading because it makes it look like the redder areas, see here, like in Nevada, are bigger when those are much less populous, right? So here, Los Angeles County here, where I live, very blue, but there's like many, many, many more people there than, up here, right? Like this one county, I forget the name of this county, just to our east, but this is like where, like, this is the fucking desert over here. Like nobody lives over here, and this is a lighter blue. So even this is a little bit misleading. And by the way, a really interesting pattern to note here is if you look at some of these, look at these patterns here, where there's a blue core, a deep blue core, and then red in the surrounding area. Like the reddest spots are right around. Like what is this here? Milwaukee? Yeah. Milwaukee is very blue in the center and then red right on the outside. This is the urban-suburban split, right, where the urban areas are bright blue and then the suburbs just outside are bright Republican. Really interesting pattern. In any case, the point is here, each state has blue and red districts, all threaded throughout them. But the votes of all of these people are basically canceled out if they if you've got like, okay, so you've got 10 million people in the state and 4,999,999 of them vote blue or red, and then 5,000,001 vote the other way. Well, then those 4,999,999 people, all of their votes might as well not exist. They might as well have not showed up, which is a fucking bummer. That, like, why don't their votes go towards the total? The president represents them as much as anybody. Why are we doing it by state at all? That's the real problem. The winner take all in the states essentially disenfranchises everybody who lives in a state and votes for the opposite party of the way the state goes. And it creates this weird illusion in American society that certain states are certain colors. Like in California, people describe it as a blue state. You read the press about it. It's like, oh, true blue California. In California, they hate Trump and they love regulations and they hate climate change, etc. No, that's not true. There's a shitload of Republicans in California, and they vote. But their votes essentially are not counted for president. Like, look, they live here and here and here. They live all in the Central Valley and, like, all over the place. There's tons of them. Look at how much red there is here. Oh, my God. It's Firefox is rating with 247 people. Welcome so much, everybody. My name is Adam Conover. I'm a television host. I can't do television right now, so I put myself on a little old streaming schedule here. And we on Mondays and Wednesdays, we learn about stuff. And on Thursdays, we do a stand-up comedy show, live stand-up comedy show at 5 p.m. Pacific time every Thursday. So tune in for that. And after we talk about this for a little while, hey, thank you, Zavio, for the subscription. After we do this for a little while, I do play some video games. I do play some video games on occasion. I hope I didn't miss any other subs. Just checking. Looks like I haven't. So welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. So my point being that, like, I think it sucks that Republicans in California are essentially disenfranchised. Like, they don't, they're going to vote for Trump and know that their vote isn't going to count. They're going to do it angrily. They're going to be upset about it. Rather than having, hey, thanks for the cheer, Vampiro187, rather than have their vote count towards the person that they want it to count as. I think that's bad. Look, I got a Stream Deck, and now I can adjust my lighting with the touch of a button. Oh, too bright. I think that's bad for democracy and for both political parties. I think it would be better if it wasn't that way. If our votes were counted more proportionally. Like, imagine if they were counted via county the way they are here. That would be much more. It's like a fractal, right? It's like you're getting a better image the more fine-grained you make the distinctions. Adam 2024, do not curse me to run for president, please. Yeah, in Illinois, Chicago controls the vote numbers. Exactly. Electoral college originated as a racist concept due to the 3/5 compromise. Yes, we're going to get to it. But so this is the big power Trump was even running, I believe. So that was prescient on our part. IXWT says, I strongly feel the electoral college vote should be based on the proportion of the state's vote. I think that would, I would want to see a study of like how that would actually break down. Like, because some of the states have too few electoral votes for that to be a very like fine-grained measure. Like, maybe we would need to like double the number of electoral votes total for that to work, have twice the number of electors, have 1,076. Did I do it right? In order for that to work. But yeah, I think that would be a reason. Funny face. What a good, see, now this is what you want from a comic actor, is just like this little micro expression that makes it funny. I love it. Yeah. So again, the electors are literal people, who are just like chosen. I'm They told us they were really worried about us doing that joke because they were worried that the elector would sue because we were saying that he was drunk. But the reporting from the time does indicate the guy was drunk. And that's what, let's see if we can find what happened there. Faithless elector John Ewards. So like the point is that these aren't just, it's not just a technicality. It's not just like some algorithm that does it where, we're like chunking it up into polling. It's actually actual people, actual humans who are empowered to make kind of whatever decision they want. I mean, they're probably not going to do it because of social pressure. And maybe some of the states have like consequences if they do, but, okay. So this guy, an anonymous Minnesota elector, pledged for Democrats John Kerry and John Ewards, cast his or her presidential vote for John Ewards rather than Kerry, presumably by accident. All of Minnesota's electors cast their vice presidential ballots for John Edwards, including the elector who cast the anomalous presidential vote. We don't know who it was. Here, this seems fun. Now this says this was the last time it happened, but this was December 1st, 2016. The last time it happened. Yeah. Oh, this is fun. Let's see here. In the morning of December 2004, Tim O'Brien woke at his home, drove to the state capital of St. Paul. A few weeks earlier, Americans had chosen to re-elect George W. Bush. Now it was O'Brien's turn to vote. He had been a Democratic activist. They're electors chosen by the DFL party faithful to represent Minnesota voters in the event that John Kerry won the state. So they're chosen by the party apparatus. So the electors all sit together. They face the press. They take an oath. They place their ballots in a green pine box. Like it's really interesting to think about. Like we think about elections as being this sort of like mechanism of government, but at the end of the day, it's always just people putting shit in boxes. You know what I mean? There's a physicality of it. Place the ballots in a green pine box that really sticks with me. Like the electors are actual physical people who go to an actual place and put their ballots in a fucking box that we can find out is made of green pine. Like that's a really interesting thing about elections in general, and it helps you understand them. because like, okay, it was something that really helped light this for me. There's this incredible book by Robert Caro, where he wrote these biographies of LBJ, called let's see, what are the different ones called? What's the one I'm thinking? Master of the Senate is the one I'm thinking of, where LBJ took control as the sort of Mitch McConnell of his day, running the Senate with an iron fist and like getting legislation through that no one else thought could get through. And a big part of his method was just like manipulating which senators were in the room at the time. Like making when someone stepped out for a second, he would like suddenly speed up the process so that they wouldn't have a chance to vote before they came back, like that kind of thing. The physicality of the voting process really matters. And the same thing in your election, like when you go vote in your polling place, keep in mind, like, where is it physically located? Can people physically make their way there? How are the ballots physically tallied? Like, these questions really matter, because at the end of the day, like voting for someone is literally a physical act. Does that make sense? It's just an important dimension that we don't often like bring into our discussion of elections, but really matters. Okay, so O'Brien was pleased to have been part of this moment. Mary Kiffmeyer pulled out the ballots and looked at them. Kiffmeyer was shocked by what she found. On one of the ballots, someone had written John E. words. The ballots were not signed. Neither O'Brien nor the 9 other electors claimed to know who the rogue elector was. It was a mystery that was nearly forgotten until now. So they were just, all of them were like, not me, I didn't do it. Let's see. Maybe an anomaly among anomalies. It's my opinion that if someone intentionally voted for E-words, that he or she would have identified them and offered up some rationale. Yeah, it seems like it was a mistake. Electors speculated the stray vote was a senior moment. All right, there's nothing else in it. Some nice visual effects there. Okay, so let's take a look at the see what else we can find here before we get into the history of the Electoral College. So these are the faithless electors for 2016. This was a time at which people were like really clamoring for people to be faithless electors and vote for Hillary Clinton instead, which was never going to happen because, again, it's like party faithful. Like, it would have been a terrible idea. People were saying the electors need to do their duty and not elect Donald Trump. And that would have been a terrible idea because at the very least we need if you were to delegitimize the system that way, it would be impossible to ever remove Trump. Because like, even though it's a fucked up system that is like susceptible to this faithlessness, if we were to allow it to, like, if we were to suddenly give the electors the power to use their judgment, how would we ever take it away from them again? Right? Like in this one case, how would this one case where we want them to, disobey, not turn into a generalizable principle? It would be so disruptive to democracy to do that. Really terrible. And yes, that was the mom from Boy Meets World on that episode. She was really wonderful. Let's see here. Let's look at contemporary issues. Oh, actually, no. Here's what I want to do. You guys want to watch the rest of that Adam Ruins Everything episode? Maybe I can find it here. Let's just watch the next section as well, because it is helpful for me when we're learning about this stuff to be reminded about what the fuck I said about it 5 years ago. And then we can use it as a jumping off point for a further discussion. And look, I don't think anyone's going to get too mad at me about doing this, because what we can do is, trying to remember to use my stream cam here. This is episode 7. So by the way, folks, if you're trying to watch Adam Ruins Everything, it's no longer on Netflix. It is now on HBO Max. So hopefully no one's going to get too pissed off at me for playing this off at HBO Max, because this is promo. This is promo for HBO Max. So get yourself an HBO Max subscription so you can watch some more Adam Ruins Everything.
Of John Kerry's running mates.
Zoom forward a
Went to
little
the
bit
guy
here.
beautiful system has become so messed up.
Actually,
Hey, I'm not in competition with John Oliver, okay? He makes his money, I make my money. And by the way, I'm assuming, I don't know anybody at HBO Max, so I'm not sure about this, but I am assuming that pretty soon every episode of Adam Ruins Everything will go on HBO Max. So finally, every single episode will be in one place, which has never been the case. Netflix has only ever had 20 episodes at once. I really want the entire library to be somewhere so people can. Let me break this down a little bit, because the Adam Ruins Everything segment, again, made this 5 years ago. It's very brief. Let's talk about what actually happened here. I know. I was opening earlier. Here we go. History Channel. This is a nice breakdown, actually. History Channel has some good stuff on their site. You know, you might think it's just like World War II videos and like the plot to kill Hitler, but like they've actually got a lot of really good info on their site. Okay. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about how the Electoral College was formed. Thank you for the sub, Teamses. Appreciate you. My neighbors are having work done in their house. They're banging on the walls. Subscribed at tier 2. Thank you so much, Teasmas. So the time of the Philadelphia Convention. No other country in the world directly elected its chief executives. The delegates were wading into uncharted territory. It's like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of difficult. Like we're gonna elect the president. Like no one had done it before. So props to them for being revolutionaries. Okay. They also had a deep-rooted distrust of executive power. They didn't trust, they just fucking fought against a king. They were like very worried about, one person having too much power. They didn't want another despot. One group of delegates felt strongly that Congress shouldn't have anything to do with picking the president. Too much opportunity for chummy corruption between the executive and legislative branches. Another camp was dead set against letting the people elect the president by straight popular vote because they thought that 18th century voters lacked the resources to be fully informed about the candidates, especially in rural outposts. Basically, they thought that you're too stupid to elect the president. And so they feared a democratic mob steering the country astray. So you got to think of it this way. They thought that Congress, the representatives and the senators, would be like the genteel gentlemen, the lords of the democracy, making educated decisions for the rest of us with a little bit of public input, but not too much, right? That was because that's what they themselves were. They were like the intellectual lords of the country, and they thought that those sorts of people should be making the decisions, right? But they didn't want Congress to do it because there was too much possibility for corruption, right? So what they did was they decided to create basically a mini duplicate of Congress temporarily that would choose the president. And so the idea was that the states would choose their electors, and the electors would be the same number of people as there are legislators, right? That's why every state's electoral vote is its number of senators plus its number of representatives in the House. If you add those two numbers together, then you get the number of electoral votes. And that is why, by the way, the numbers favor the small states, because even the smallest states get at least 3 electoral votes because they get the benefit of those 2 senators no matter what their population is. There's a lot of states, it's kind of funny, we don't really think about this often, there's a lot of states that have less representation in the House than in the Senate because every state gets 2 senators, but some states are so small in terms of their population they only get 1 representative. So the least you can have is 3. So those states would choose, I believe by their own rules that they wanted to pick, who the electors would be, and then the electors would choose the president. And so that way they were like, okay, now we're choosing the genteel elite landowners who we want to have running things, but it's not the Congress. It's like a parallel group of elite landowners who are only around for like one moment every 4 years. That was like the fucking idea. And it was a compromise between these two groups. The one group that wanted to do straight popular vote and the one other group that wanted to do wanted Congress to do it. Now, here is the slavery part. This is where it gets really fucking tricky, okay? Determining exactly how many electors to assign to each state was another sticking point. The divide was between slave-owning and non-slave-owning states. It was the same issue that plagued the distribution of the seats in the House of Representatives. Should or shouldn't the founders include slaves in counting a state's population? Roughly 40% of people living in the southern states were enslaved black people who could not vote. So, the reasons that James Madison from Virginia, where enslaved people accounted for 60% of the population, knew that either a direct presidential election or one with electors divvied up according to free white residents only wouldn't fly in the South. And that's because the South had a much smaller proportional population. It had a much smaller proportional population of white people. So if they just did a direct presidential election, it wasn't just that they thought that the average American citizen was too stupid to vote for president, although they did believe that too. Also, if it was a direct presidential election, where a direct popular vote, where one vote equaled one vote for president, right? You just add up the total popular votes together, the South would have less political power. And they didn't want to have less political power because they wanted more. It's pretty common human nature. You just want more. You don't want less. You want more. And again, this is the Constitution. This is like the point at which they're deciding whether or not they're going to enter the union, right? They have a lot of leverage right now. Like, they could just be like, nah, we don't want to fucking enter your stupid union because we don't have enough power. So bye-bye. And that wouldn't be good. So in order to keep the country together, like, they need to compromise with them. They're forced to compromise with them. And so one of the points of doing a representative democracy was so they could have more political power. So let's just finish it here. The result was the controversial 3/5 compromise in which enslaved black people would be counted as 3/5 of a person for the purpose of allocating representatives and electors and calculating federal taxes. So basically, the South was saying, even though we don't let black people vote, we want to vote for president and representative, all those things, but we want our amount of political power to be based on the number of total people, including black people. So even though only 60% of our population is voting, we want 100% of our population to count, like on the census, for the purposes of figuring out how many representatives we have, right? Now, that's fucked up because it means their votes are worth more than in states that don't have slavery. But they were saying, that's what we want. You need to give that to us or we're the fuck out of here, right? And so the non-slave holding states were like, no, you're either let your black people count or they shouldn't vote. Sorry, either let your black people vote or they shouldn't count. And so they ended up literally meeting in the middle and coming up with the 3/5 compromise, under which black people counted as 3/5 of a person, and giving basically the South extra political power. Like, that is the only way to look at it. The South got extra political power compared to the proportion of people who are allowed to vote in their state. Pretty amazing. One of the dumbest compromises in human history. Dumb is an interesting way to put it. It certainly was racist. It certainly had bad effects, but like, it's also one of those things where when you look at political compromises like that, it, to a certain extent, you can look back at these guys and say, well, what else were they supposed to do, right? Like, what else were the people from the North supposed to do? Like, not compromise? Like, they're trying to make a fucking country here. I actually don't know enough about the history to know if a better choice could have been made, if a better choice was politically possible. But this was what they felt they had to do in order to get the country made. And that's in the fucking Constitution. And so when people say, like, a compromise with slavery is literally written into the Constitution, that is what it is. It is right there. And by the way, this is a compromise that eventually, I think you're right, actually. It is a dumb, you're right, KT Gremlin Teeth. It is a dumb compromise because it literally led to a civil war. It led to a civil war. There's this tension about slavery that lasted in the country for over 100 years until it eventually led to war. It's really, really bizarre. Hey, Bruce Wayne Brady, I'm thankful for you for watching the stream. Now, guys, look, I know I'm getting blown out here on occasion, all right? It's because I'm still using this goddamn Logitech thing. Maybe I should light up the back of the room a little bit. Maybe this will help me be less blown out. I thank you for coming here and watching the stream with me. You are great. Head Cheese 126, also Henry. This is a little bit better, right? So I have right here. Let's take a little break. I'll show you the camera. I have this baby right here. This is like what all the streamers tell you to get. And I'm gonna I'm still waiting on my mount to arrive so I can attach it to the back of the desk and point it at myself, and then I'll have a really great camera. It's gonna look so good once I got that set up. It's gonna look so fucking good. It's gonna blow your mind. I am breathtaking. Oh my gosh, thank you, Arch Drone. That's so nice. DSLRs are hacks. I know. I have too much TV money to spend on Twitch. Twitch, again, is the, as I say all the time, the Uber driving of content creation, because you got to spend like thousands of dollars on equipment before you can even start doing it for free. Okay. Let's see. So, yes, the compromise ensured that the southern states would ratify the Constitution and gave Virginia, home to 200,000 slaves, a quarter of the total electoral votes required to win the presidency. So, like, the reason, like, this led to the Civil War was it gave the South so much more political power that they were able to block national legislation about slavery. And even up to, the 20th century, like the Civil Rights Movement was blocked by Southern senators for years. Famously by Dick Russell and his block of Southern senators. For decades and decades, they were able to stop any meaningful passage of civil rights legislation because of the undemocratic nature of the Senate, which was, again, like a concession to slavery. It's crazy stuff. Yes, it was designed broken. Let's just watch the end of this segment here on HBO Max. HBO Max, subscribe today. Very funny guy. Really incredible fellow. Yeah, so... Look, that's the history. We don't need to watch more of the episode. Let's look at some more criticisms of the electoral vote. One problem is that the popular vote has failed to. The president has been the person who less people in the country want to be president multiple times. Let's see, how many times was it? Okay, let's look at the swing state thing again. Exclusive focus on swing states. Look at this. These maps show the amount of attention given to each state by the Bush and Kerry campaigns during the final 5 weeks of the 2004 election. Each waving hand represents a visit from a presidential or vice presidential candidate. So we got a little bit. Which one is which? Oh, I see. One is each waving hand. Oh, and each dollar sign represents $1 million spent on TV advertising. This is a really weird chart, but okay. Yeah, so by the way, these hands here in California, these were just to raise money. This was like San Francisco and LA. Let's raise some money. New York, let's raise some money. Maine, I don't know why they went to Maine. But then everything else is just like, yeah, we got to go for Ohio. We got to go for Iowa. We got to go for Florida. We got to go for a little bit of Michigan. It's it means that just these states decide the whole election. And like, why should that be? Like, why is that? Like, okay, again, there's Republicans in California. They could be voting for president. And here's the thing. There are more and less of them, depending. It's like, again, the Electoral College flattens out our notion of the country. So people think, Californians, they're Democrats no matter what. No one's ever going to change their mind in California. They're all going to love the Democrats. Not true. We vote for them in different numbers. Like, well, we don't need to look it up right now. It would take too long. But like California, like, the number of people who are voting for the Democrat versus the Republican goes up and down in different years. I would bet that there were more Trump voters in California in 2016 than there will be this year. That would just be my guess, based on the way the polls are looking. But like, they're here, and like, why shouldn't those are people in California who are changing their minds about who they want to represent them? Why shouldn't their votes be counted? Why? I mean, people, there's a lot of arguments that people make about the Electoral College that like try to back justify it for ahistorical reasons. We should take a look at some of those. But none of those arguments address like, why shouldn't someone who changes their mind in California this year, well, I voted for Hillary last year, but this year I'm going to vote for Trump, or vice versa. Why shouldn't that person's vote matter? Why shouldn't that affect the total? Like, it's really, there's no justification for it. That argument just has to be ignored by anyone who's trying to support the Electoral College. We jumped all the way down here. discourages turnout and participation. And by the way, that really matters. We talked about, on our last learning stream about the California ballot propositions, how important those are. We talked on an episode of my podcast, Factually, which, by the way, if you haven't heard it, go check it out. My podcast, Factually, did a interview with Nithya Raman, who's running for LA City Council here in District 4, about how incredibly important local elections are, arguably more important than presidential elections for your well-being, how well you'll how you'll be living your life. And if people don't turn out to the presidential election because they're like, well, I live in a blue state, so who gives a shit? Those people are also not going to vote in the down ballot elections either. And so it depresses turnout across the board. Socially liberal, fiscally conservative Republicans would do great in California. Yeah, they do. We have those. They're called Democrats. Like, that's fucking... Here's the other problem, by the way. And this is an unrelated problem. Well, it's related and it's unrelated. California has actually become very much a one-party state, not in terms of the people and what they actually vote for, but in terms of the party apparatus. Republicans almost never win elected office, and the Republican Party, the apparatus barely exists. Like, there's like the infrastructure of the party is like very ramshackle because almost nobody has any power. And so what that means is every politician who runs for office runs as a Democrat no matter what they believe. So the truth isn't that like, oh, every single person in California, and if you hear people say this and it's not true. It's not, oh, every single person in California believes in, access to abortion and gay rights and liberal fiscal policy and a compassionate approach to homelessness and racial equity and da-da-da-da-da. No, it's not true. What it means is people who hold the traditionally Republican views on those issues just run as Democrats. Like, we just have, like, when you live in a one-party state, it doesn't mean that conservatives disappear. It means that conservatives just become Democrats. And so what we have in California, to a degree that nobody really talks about, is conservative Democrats, like Democrats who they run on the D line. There's a couple issues where they cleave to traditional Democratic values, such as, for instance, gay marriage. Like, I support gay marriage and etc. But when it comes to issues like reforming policing or having a more equitable tax structure under which corporations pay their fair share, or having like corporate friendly policies, things like that. They all have the traditional Republican position, but they run as Democrats, and Democrats vote for them because all they see on the ballot is that letter D, and they go, oh, well, this guy must agree with me on everything because he's a Democrat. He's on my team, right? But no, he's not on your fucking team. He's not on your team. He's a fucking conservative who's just like, it's so this is part of why the parties themselves are so useless as a way to talk about politics. Like, if you really want to understand politics in America, you have to remove yourself from the Republican Democratic label because they don't affect so much of what's going on in this country. Republican and Democrat, those refer to party organizations, not to people, not to social movements, not to ways of thinking, and certainly not to the ways that people vote. So like, the guy who's running against Nithya Raman here in LA City Council, District 4, the guy is like running as a Democrat, and he has people voting for him because like, oh, I just vote for the Democrat. And meanwhile, he's like running against Black Lives Matter. He's running against, higher taxes on corporate properties and things like that. And the people who are voting for him don't fucking know that because they're allowing their preconceptions about the party labels to override them actually looking at the issues. And I don't blame those people for not looking at the issues because it's too hard. It's too hard to look at the issues. We got shit to do. We're too busy to just look at the labels. We're too busy to like look at every single person's policy platform. Instead, we just look at the labels. But the labels are a hideous flattening of the issue. I don't know what the solution to this is. The other thing is, by the way, that like progressive and conservative, I read a really good thread that like we shouldn't talk about liberal and conservative anymore. What we should talk about is progressive and reactionary. Because there are people who are like liberals, but they're also reactionaries in that again, they agree with all the traditional liberal things, but they don't want any further change to occur. In fact, they want to fight against changes that are occurring. So when you hear people say like, well, I am voting for Joe Biden and I support gay marriage, but these kids on these college campuses are really going nuts and like defund the police. Don't we think that's going a little bit far? Those people are reactionaries. They're having a reaction against the social changes that are in progress, and they're a violent reaction that is upsetting them, and they want to go back to a simpler time. But they label themselves as liberals because they like believe in climate change and shit, you know. So you know there are these other dimensions along which we need to think. That's why I'm resistant to like basically all forms of political labeling. I just dropped in the stream of what's her name? You guys probably know. She's describes herself as a trans leftist streamer. She's not on right now. But I popped in. We did a raid because I've watched her stuff before and liked it. Live Posting. Thank you very much. Is Live Posting. And everyone in her chat was like, Adam, are you leftist? I thought you were a lib. And then Live Posting was like, I think he's a left-leaning lib, is he not? And I'm like, guys, I just don't use those words in relation to myself. I just like do the work and I talk about the issue. And then you call me whatever you like. You know what I mean? Live Posting is very good. Please follow her. She's great. The one other than reactionary, progressive or reactionary, right? Progressive meaning you want to move things forward. Reactionary being stop, go back, right? And that's also, by the way, a good way to look at the Supreme Court, for instance. I was reading a compelling essay today in the Times saying that like we shouldn't think of the majority that's forming on the Supreme Court as being conservative, because true conservatism means like, hey, we're going to take judicious steps and we're going to respect precedent and things like that. Like we're not going to overturn, we're not going to, throw the deck of cards in the air, right? But the majority that's emerging on the Supreme Court does want to throw the cards in the air. They want to reject precedents and this built-up body of law, which is not a conservative point of view. It's a reactionary point of view. It says we want to destroy. This is one I'm getting far afield from the Electoral College, but like this is something that really bothers me because I learned about conservatism in college, right? The soul of conservatism. Edmund Burke was one of the original conservatives, and his point of view was. This is the soul of conservatism, that there are institutions in society that are important, that do a lot of work, and we shouldn't be too quick to overthrow them if we don't like them, right? Because we don't know how much institutional knowledge is in them and what important purpose they're serving in holding up our society. So a good example might be the Catholic Church, right? The Catholic Church is the world's oldest organization. It's so large. It does many good things, does many bad things, right? But rather than say, hey, we want to blow it up, we want to like end it, we hate the Catholic Church, fuck you, Catholic Church, we should say, well, why don't we make a couple small revisions to the Catholic Church? Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's not go blowing shit up, right? But if you look at what the Republican Party has been doing over the last 4 years, it has been blowing shit up, right? Like that's what Trump fucking ran on. Drain the swamp, right? Rick Perry, I'm going to eliminate all these departments. I'm going to get rid of them, right? When he doesn't even know what they do. Like he said we should get rid of the Department of Energy. And then later he became the head of the Department of Energy, and he realized, oh, the Department of Energy manages the whole nuclear arsenal. So maybe we shouldn't get rid of that, because if we got rid of it, all of the people who keep our nuclear arsenal safe would disappear. And that might be a bad idea. So that's not conservative to like not understand that about your own institutions. That's reactionary, where you're saying, no, I want to destroy. I want to destroy what has been built because I don't like it and I want to go back to an earlier time. Yeah, get rid of the post office. That's not conservative. That's reactionary. And so we need to get the word reactionary a lot more into our political dialogue. Like forget Republican, Democrat. Forget liberal, conservative. Think progressive, reactionary. Those are the two forces. And I'm not saying that's the be-all, end-all of politics, but start thinking that way. Start looking at the world that way, and you'll see the world much, much differently in ways that really help you to understand it a lot better. Okay. Let's look at some of the other problems of the Electoral College. Obscuring disenfranchisement within the state. It obscures any voting problems within a particular state. Yeah, because we don't pay enough attention to the individual voting within the state. We only look at that big number at the end. Oh, by the way, U.S. territories are not enfranchised. So we've got people in Puerto Rico, the Mariana Islands, Virgin Islands, American Samoa, and Guam. And let's remember, by the way, that Puerto Rico has over 3 million Americans living in it. 3 million Americans who don't get to vote for fucking president. By the way, check this out. Various scholars consequently conclude that the U.S. national electoral process is not fully democratic. These are like, scholars who are like, yeah, let's rank all the democracies. America is not particularly democratic of a democracy. Let's see here. Advantage based on state population, disadvantage for third parties. We already talked about this stuff. Diverger's law. This is interesting. Diverger's law holds that single ballot plurality rule elections, such as first past the post, structured within single member districts, tend to favor a two-party system. This is basically that our first past the post system creates two parties. So a really interesting body of study. French sociologists who observed the effect. Basically means that the way you structure political systems really matters. If you have first past the post, right? That's first past the post means voters cast their vote for a candidate of their choice, and the candidate who receives the most votes wins. That was what we think of as a normal election, right? As opposed to say ranked choice voting, where you can rank who you want, and that helps multiple people, right? That means that you can cast your vote for a dark horse, and then if they don't make it, your vote devolves back to your second choice, right? First past the post is you get one vote, and the person with the most votes wins no matter what. We think of that as a given, right, as a way to do elections, but there are other methods like ranked choice. And what we don't realize is first past the post just favors the two-party system. We end up with two parties, not because Republicans and Democrats have so much power and they're corporate funded and blah, 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 and they're a cabal and blah, 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 and all the weirdo conspiracy theory shit that you'll hear about on certain unnamed podcasts. It's a structural issue. It's because if you look at the math of what the parties have to do in order to gain power, which is compete with each other and always come out ahead, you end up having forces coalescing. They end up teaming up in such a way where it just favors there being two parties in the system. That's the stable equilibrium that you end up with. And so if you want to change the two-party system, if you don't like the two-party system, and most people in America don't, you need to change our first past the post voting system in order to change that. Most of us don't realize that. Yes, it's game theory. Correct, Mr. Bukong. Do I think we'll see the major evolution or extinction of the two-party system in our lifetimes? Extremely good question. Now, what would mean that it would be changed? We could see, for instance, one party rise and one party fall and another one rise. That has happened before in American history. The Whigs were one of the main parties. You had the Democrats and the Whigs until the Whigs fell apart and the Republicans quickly rose to fill the gap. So it's one down, one immediately came up. Beyond that, there's never really been a third party ever in American history. You've got the Bull Moose Party, stuff like that. Libertarians and Greens don't count. I think you would need to see a wide-scale move away from first past the post voting in order to get a semi-permanent third party. And I don't know how that would happen. So in Massachusetts, you've got a state referendum right now, a ballot initiative to do ranked choice. Ranked choice could result in not there just being two parties. But how would you you would need to have that happen in every single other state in order to bring about a national state of affairs such that a third party could make it. That seems difficult to do to me. Within our lifetimes, within my lifetime, I'm 37. So let's say I live to 87. So I got another 50 years. Does that sound like a lot of time or a little time? I'm a little worried. I got 50 more years. So in 50 years, do I think that ranked choice voting could pass by ballot referendum in, most of the states in the country? Probably not. Probably not. Since we all check our email in the morning, we should just have a pure democracy where we all vote on an agenda of items every day. Terrible idea, Lil Bigfoot. Because here's the problem, again, as we did, if you go watch the VOD of our California ballot initiative, Let's Learn About last week, you'll see that's a terrible idea because people cannot, we can't understand the issues well enough to ever, if you ask the average voter to understand every single issue well enough to vote on it in a way that even fucking benefits them, it'll never happen. It'll never happen. And so instead, you'll have what we have right now with our ballot proposition system in California, which is that people who are able to afford massive amounts of money, such as Uber and Lyft or various, rich folks who just want to get their pet issue on the ballot. Basically, in California, we do have that, but you have to either be a major corporation with a lot of money or you have to be an independently wealthy billionaire who wants to make a ballot proposition happen just because it's your fucking pet issue. You have to flood the airwaves with ads in order to get it passed because people don't understand the issue because they have to do jobs. They have to do jobs. That's what I call working. They got more important things to do. Yes, please God, vote no on Prop 22. I hate to break it to you, H. Beischel, but I'm pretty sure Prop 22 is going to pass. Uber and Lyft are spending $200 million advertising it. This is a proposition which will take the rights of unemployment insurance, health insurance, the right to join a union away from Uber and Lyft drivers. That is what the text says. It says exempts app-based services from providing employee benefits to drivers. That's the name of the ballot. And once it does that, if it comes through, it will only be able to be changed by a 7/8 majority of the legislature, meaning that it is basically irrevocable. It's incredibly anti-democratic. They're spending $200 million in order to get it passed. They are also advertising it every single time you open the Lyft app. You will see, let's do it right now. You will see, yes on Prop 22 advertising. If you order from Instacart, they will put yes on 22 stickers on your fucking groceries. Here we go. It says right there, support CA drivers. Almost doxed myself. I don't think you were able to see the dot. So they're like, and that's free advertising for them. It's really sickening. It's really sickening. And they're buying themselves out of a state law that they don't want to follow. That's what it is. It really is fucking gross. And it's not getting nearly enough coverage. It's being covered as a debate rather than as a corporate takeover of the democratic process, which is what it is. I think it's going to pass. It's going to be devastating for the labor movement. It's going to, again, take rights away from drivers. It's really awful. It's really awful. And the reason I talk about these electoral issues is that, like, I was raised with this faith in our democratic system as a perfect thing that was given to us by the founding fathers, where it all exists for a reason, it all works out in the end, and it is good. And the fact is, like, there are structural issues that are really fucked up in it. And if we don't take them seriously and understand them, they will continue to control our lives. They will. If those in power have learned anything, it's that if you can turn it into a debate, you can just keep it going forever. That's absolutely true. Aquadark K22. I love reading full usernames. So let's talk about what we could do instead of the Electoral College. I'm sure that's what everybody's wondering. Let's see here. There's some alternatives. By the way, most polls since 1967 have shown that a majority of Americans favor the president and vice president being elected by the nationwide popular vote instead of by an electoral college. Though polls taken since 2016 have showed an increase in support for keeping the electoral college. Yeah, that's because after Trump won an election with the electoral college where he didn't win the popular vote, right-wingers started propagandizing that the electoral college was good, and here are all these reasons for it, to an extent that I believe it actually shifted public opinion. Let's look at 5 common myths about the electoral college. This could be fun. Because this is what you hear about it. It was created to combat majority tyranny and support federalism. In point of historical fact, it was in fact not. This stance depends on a profound misunderstanding of the history of the institution. This guy is he's a professor at Rutgers, Board of Governors professor. The Atlantic is hardly a left-wing paper. They got a lot of right-wing stuff in this paper too. Let's see here. Defenders of the Electoral College argue it was created to combat majority tyranny and support federalism, and it continues to serve these purposes. We live in a republic, which means that 51% of the population doesn't get to boss around the other 49%. So, yeah, no, the reason they're saying this is because Republicans are a minority in the country. And so they're saying the minority should be allowed to be in charge. And they're trying to come up with reasons for why that should be. The Electoral College promotes more equal regional representation and protects the interests of sparsely populated states. Again, why would this... I don't really understand why this would be. I mean, I don't think that like people from different regions are discriminated against. Am I crazy? Like, what we currently have in the country is that city issues get almost no attention, right? If you want proof of that, look at housing. Housing is almost not covered on the presidential level. In 2016, I was really becoming aware of how bad a problem housing was, and I waited for Hillary or Trump to bring it up. They never talked about it. This year, they finally started talking about it a little bit. Elizabeth Warren had a housing plan. But, like, if you live in a city, you know that housing is one of the biggest issues. We've got unhoused people all over the place, have nowhere to live. Everyone says their rent is too high. Something like, huge numbers of Americans are spending 50 to 90% of their income on rent. Like, housing is a huge problem. It's almost never covered. Why is that? Because rural areas have far more electoral power. And look, I know there are rural issues that deserve attention, right? If nobody cared about the issues that are facing farmers, that would be a problem. And there have been times in American history where people didn't care enough about the issues that were facing farmers, and farmers had to like organize politically. But there are more people in cities than in the country, and that should count for something. Am I fucking crazy? Like, if there is some extent to which more people needing something should mean that it's easier to get that thing done. Am I a crazy person? I think it's possible. I might be right. Jesus Christ. By the way, if you're just joining me, my name's Adam Conover. I do host a show called Adam Ruins Everything on True TV. But I can't work on TV right now because of COVID, so I'm on a streaming schedule for a little bit. Every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific. Every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific. I do learning streams where we learn about some fun stuff. Every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific, we do a stand-up comedy show. So come in then. We'll watch some comedy together. Okay. Many supporters of the Electoral College assume that the debate about presidential selection of the Constitutional Convention, like the debate today, focused on whether the president should be chosen by the Electoral College or by a nationwide popular vote. But the debate was not about that. The debate was, should Congress choose the president? They thought that Congress should choose the president. This was unsurprising because in most states at the time, the legislature chose the governor. On June 1st, the convention voted that Congress should elect the president, and then delegates would affirm that decision on 3 other occasions. Wow, I actually didn't know that. But most delegates wanted the executive to check legislative usurpations and block unjust or unwise laws. They feared that dependence on the legislature for election and possible re-election would compromise the executive's independence. Right, they didn't want they wanted the check and balance system, right? Some delegates hope to observe this danger by limiting the president to a single term. But as Governor Morris of Pennsylvania, by the way, this guy's funny because he was not the governor; his name was just Governor. This could deprive the nation of a highly qualified executive, eliminate the hope of continuation in his office as a spur to good behavior, and encourage the executive to make hay while sun shines. The point of all this is the Electoral College did not emerge because of opposition to a popular election by of the president. So when people say the Founding Fathers didn't want to... So actually, I'm going to cop to this. Our video was like a little bit off in this case. Our research process was not as good. That was year one. We only had one researcher working for us, and we flattened stuff a little bit too much. I'm going to cop to that right there. Because we did the framing that you saw in our video was a little bit that they They didn't even consider a popular vote, whereas we had our guy say, popular vote should be directly. Haha, psych. That didn't really happen. Yeah, go get an HBO Max account where you can watch Adam Ruins Everything. Another common belief is that the convention rejected popular election of the president because the delegates feared majority tyranny. People make this claim as though to say that because the framers were skittish of a national popular election, so should we be today. But once again, this interpretation of history is wrong. The convention did twice reject popular election of the president, but the delegates who rejected it did not object to popular elections per se. They had no problem with popular election of the House of Representatives or state legislatures. Rather, they were skeptical of a national popular election primarily for reasons that are no longer relevant today. They fear that people lack the information. Okay, we did talk about this already. Some Southern delegates feared the popular election of the president would disadvantage their states. See? The right of suffrage was much more diffusive in the northern and the southern states, which would give them the advantage in a popular election. A popular vote would not count the disenfranchised enslaved population, reducing southern influence. That is the real reason they didn't want the popular vote. It was not because of tyranny. It was because they were like, wait, our slaves aren't going to vote, and that means that we'll have less political power. It's a fucking racist reason, okay? Here it is in black and white for you. The Electoral College solved both of these problems for them. Here we go. Many people also believe the Electoral College was designed to preserve federalism and states' rights. Madison summarized the prevailing sentiment. The president is to act for the people, not the states. Most delegates were sharply critical of state legislatures and wanted to ensure the president had independence necessary to oppose their schemes. They were not fans of the state legislatures or of state rights. It was also expected that once elected, the electors would operate independently of their state governments. In sum, the Electoral College was not designed to promote federalism. Martin Diamond, one of the most thoughtful proponents of the Electoral College, accurately described the design as an anti-states' right device, a way of keeping the election from state politicians and giving it to the people. Yeah. All right, so let's look at the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. So, by the way, I just want to make the point that a lot of times you see people say this is what the Founding Fathers wanted in order to prove that the world that we have is a good one. You know, is the most common thing to do is to look at today and say, well, history wanted it that way, so that's why it needs to stay that way. That's the argument for the Founding Fathers designed the Electoral College to protect the rights of rural states, right? But you should be wary whenever you see an argument like that because it is almost never true. The reason we have something today, whether it's the Electoral College, whether it's hot dogs come in packages of 8 and hot dog buns come in packages of 10, I don't give a shit what it is almost never because someone rationally designed it. It's usually because of accident, circumstance, compromise, stupidity, all sorts of weird things coming together. And when you actually look at the historical reasons for something like the Electoral College, we've just already spent an hour and a half going to the origins of it, and we have barely even covered most of them, right? Because the fact is, this was like dozens of men getting together over the course of a decade or so, coming up with their different ideas. You know, it was like the push and pull of different political forces. It's complicated. It's messy. That is why we have what we have today. And so the simple explanation of the Founding Fathers wanted it that way, and that's why we have it, can't possibly be true. That kind of explanation is always, come up with in order to justify doing nothing. And so when we look at history, we need to embrace the messiness of it, the messy reasons behind things being the way they are. But we also shouldn't overvalue what history tells us. Like, the fact is, it doesn't fucking matter why the Founding Fathers created the Electoral College. It does not matter. They lived in a completely different world than we live in today. They are not here. I'm going to be really clear about this. You need to fucking hear this from me. The founding fathers were not smarter than us. They weren't goddamn emissaries from heaven inspired by the will of God to give us the perfect truth of how to run a country, and we may never ever change it. That's not true, all right? It is hundreds of years later. Society has advanced since then. Science has advanced. Political science has become a field that we study now, that we can understand. We know about things like first past the post voting always resulting in a two-party system that's deleterious to democracy, and ranked choice being a more optimal way to cast votes. We know that. They didn't know that because guess what? Research has been done. Shit has been uncovered. You know what I mean? We have learned and grown as a species. And guess what? Those guys back then were like the only people, the only reason they were running the country was they were the only people who had educations. Most people were farmers, laborers, people like that. These guys were the fucking landed aristocracy who were able to get a college education and even like talk about how the government should be run. So they were the best people to do it at the time. But today, the amount of education that we have, right? The amount of people who are smart and can hold these ideas in their head is massive compared to what it was back then. And we are smarter than they individually were. So the idea that like we need to give a shit about what they wanted as like something that we must never deviate from is ludicrous. We have the same power that they did back then to decide our own destinies. Like, the founding fathers didn't sit around going, well, the king of England, the ancient king of England, decided that we should be ruled by them for all time and we cannot ever change that, right? No, they said, hold on a second. We live in a modern society. We live in our own world. We can make our own choices about how we should govern our affairs. Let's go ahead and do it. And they came up with something better than what existed. We can do the same fucking thing today. We can say, hold on a second. These founding fathers guys, they had a bunch of good ideas. They also had a bunch of shitty ones. A bunch of them were racist, and they made a compromise with slavery, and that's why we had this thing. Maybe we should get rid of it. Maybe we'd be better off. Let's do some research. Oh, turns out we would be? Okay, let's do it. We have that power. We're not bound by the dictates of the past. I believe Thomas Jefferson said himself, the dead have no rights. Thomas Jefferson, the dead have no rights. He did say that. The dead have neither power nor rights over it. I'm correct. Thomas Jefferson himself said it. I Googled it really fast. So just bear that in mind. Next time you hear this argument from authority, this argument that like the founding fathers wanted this or didn't want that, right? First of all, look into the history. Know that it's messy. Know that when someone is making that argument, they're almost always trying to create a simplistic reason for why you should never change anything. But then on top of that, remember, it doesn't fucking matter. You are alive today. They are not. You know what you need better than they do. You are probably better educated. You could be just as smart. And you have the right to determine your own destiny. We all have the right to determine our own destiny. We can say, those founding fathers, great guys, we don't have to fucking do what they say. The end, all right? Woof, woof. Somebody clip that. I'm going to hit my clip button. Did it work? Oh, it works. It lit up on my stream deck. Well, I'll make a highlight of that later. Hoo boy. Okay, let's look at the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. So this is an attempt to restructure the Electoral College. It's an agreement among and it's really creative. It's an agreement among a group of U.S. states and the District of Columbia to award all their electoral votes to whichever presidential candidate wins the overall popular vote in the 50 states and the District of Columbia. The compact is designed to ensure that the candidate who receives the most votes nationwide is elected president and would come into effect only when it would guarantee that outcome. It's a really clever design. As of July 2020, it's been adopted by 15 states and the District of Columbia, although it is suspended in Colorado. Interesting. That's what your proposition is about, huh? including Colorado, these states have 196 electoral votes, which is 36% of the Electoral College, and 73% of the 270 votes needed to give the compact legal force. Certain legal questions may affect the implementation of the compact. So it could be really interesting once it gets to the point it needs to get to. But so basically the way it would work is these states have already agreed to it. Once enough states have agreed to it, they will, all of these states, the states have the power to determine their own electoral votes, right? That's the important thing to remember that the Founding Fathers put into the Electoral College, right? The states have the ability to decide how to apportion their electoral votes. Well, once this is passed in enough states to equal half of 538, right, or equal the 270 you need to get, I wonder why is it 270? Because 270 is not half of 538, is it? Isn't that interesting? What is half of 538? Slightly less than that. 270 is, 540. Very interesting. 270 is half of 540. It's half of 538 plus 1. No, it isn't. Oh, it's half of 538 plus 1. I was doing the math differently. I see. 270 gives you a majority of 1. Of course. You guys are smarter than me. Gets Adam a bigger soapbox. Thank you so much. Hey, Clancy Knock, thank you for subscribing. Pretty good rant, 9 out of 10. Appreciate that. Like KT Grumman ranting about the Founding Fathers did not have toilets. Okay. Really happy, by the way, that we've got such a nice big audience for this stream. Again, give me a follow, everybody. Give me a follow. We're going to be doing this multiple times a week, learning streams. We have a blast doing it. I want you to keep joining me. Josh Grand gave me a follow. Macaroni Kensha gave me a follow. 0 for 1 Games gave me a follow. Incredible. We're going to be breaking it down for you. Fuji Pack just subscribed. Thank you so much. That helps me being able to continue doing this. Basalt followed. Birchwood Ubo followed. Unbelievable. You folks are bringing them in. Bag o' Bees followed. I hope you. Thank you to the sentient bag of bees for following. Manuel Magana has followed. Kobe has subscribed. Oh my God, we're having such a great day here on the stream. Thank you so much. Moribund has subscribed. Oh my gosh, you folks are wonderful. I really appreciate that so much. Do we get another sub? Oh no, it just the alert took a second to pop up. Really appreciate it. Oh, we got a hype train going. Holy crap. Ixwit subscribed. Shorio6 subscribed. Oh, are we gonna take a break from the National Interstate Compact to try to do the hype train for a second? Oh my God. Hypey. This bizarre, dumbass Twitch feature really works on me. I want to see that hype train keep going. By the way, I do play games as well. Yeah, maybe I'll play a little games after we do the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact part. Shori06 just subscribed. Thank you so much. Necromantec cheered. Thank you so much for your cheer, Necromantec. Incredible. Bourbon Weather subscribed. That's a great... What is bourbon weather for you? When it's snowy? I quit drinking, but... Kate Moon Oz subscribed. Oh my God, we've already reached level 3 on the hype train. I appreciate you guys for appreciating this content. Kate Moon Oz, thank you so much. I got subbed by the Gamer President candidate. Who's that? Sketch Bravo, thank you for following. KT Gremlin Teeth, thank you for the cheer. Look at this. Oh my God, we're on level 3 of the hype train. Look at my hair flopping around. Keep the hype train going for 10 minutes while you run to the subway and load up a gift card. Don't do that, Aqua Dark. If you got, don't worry about it, man. Hey, KT Gremlin Teeth, thank you for the extra cheers. Oh my God. Loose Chan J, thank you for the bits. Enigma Deus, Ethan Webpage, thank you for the sub. Oh my gosh. You folks are amazing. Hype Hair is flying. So many cheers. Unbelievable. We're at level 3. Enigma Deus, thank you for the cheer. Curly Top Coffee, thank you for the sub. Oh my God, Lily Rowe, thank you for the hype. Iris Dead Tide, thank you. Chelsea VR, thank you so much. Oh my God, Shorio6 is gifting 5 subs. Shame Memory, thank you for subbing. Oh my God, this train is going nuts right now. I don't normally like how on Twitch it becomes a telethon, but this is blowing my mind what you guys are doing right here today. Thank you so much. Oh my God, I got an emote thanks to Shory's gift. Unbelievable. Agro Wander one wants a gift too. If you get, by the way, everybody, here's a reason you want to sub is Curly Top Coffee. Thank you so much. Bourbon Weather. Thank you for the extra. Hype Train. If you sub on Thursdays when we do our stand-up comedy show, you get special access into the Zoom meeting so you can laugh at the comics. Your laughs will be heard on stream if you come back with your subscription on Thursday at 5 p.m. How cool is that? Can I use my hair as a shield? It's a little bit soft. I think I might die if I tried to do that. I'm really glad. Yeah, KT Gremlin Teeth liked that, didn't you? Didn't you like it? A Bear Medium, thank you for subscribing. Beef Pants, thank you for the cheer. Shame Memory, thank you for the subscription. Unbelievable. You just saw my Twitch about Uber and Lyft. It is mind-boggling, isn't it? Isn't it fucking mind-boggling what they're doing with Prop 22? Yes, and you got to make sure that you link your Discord and your Twitch, and you have to join our Discord below, where we have a special sub channel where I chat with all my subby dubbies. Oh, Philip Jameson. Every time you've done stand-up on stream, it's been rough because there's no audience. You're a stand-up, Phil Jameson. Oh, you're also Phil Jameson here's also a streamer. Cool. You're a partnered streamer. Look at that. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Do we get another? Oh, no. It's just loading up all the. Oh, Pleasant One. Thank you for the bits. I love it when the little alert box falls way behind. Bogshin, thank you for the sub. Yeah, this is totally the Adam knows everything guy. No, I just ruin everything. I got a Discord. Yep. I got a Discord. Mershar, thanks for the sub. I think that's also probably one of our gift subs, isn't it? Guys, we're so close. We got 3 minutes going to get to the final level of the hype train. We're getting so close. Shame Memory. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Guys, we're all getting emotes. By the way, if you subscribe, you get cool custom emotes from this channel as well. Oh my God, Sela What is gifting 5? What the heck, Sela What? Incredible work. Thank you so much. What a kind person. And Curly Top Coffee is... You guys are too much. You folks are too goddamn much. Too nice. Dang, it's popping off right now. It's popping the heck off. It's popping off. It's popping off in here. We're supposed to be learning about the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, and instead, we got a gosh dang hype train going. Unbelievable. Incredible. Pleasant One converted a Prime Gaming sub to a Tier 1 sub. Incredible. Thank you so much. Thank you for the cheers, Chelsea VR4. Everybody's really kind. Now, by the way, I want to be really clear. If you do not sub and you do not cheer, you are still a valued member of our community. I want to thank you. You are a Conover watcher, along with the best of them, all right? So thank you for being a part of this stream. You're welcome to join in our Discord, hang out. We've got wonderful sections. We've got a section called Let's Learn Shit, where we start learning, where we learn about cool shit, all right? People share interesting facts they learned. It's great. So thank all you folks. You do not need to pay money to Twitch or to me in order to be a valued part of this community. I just want to be really clear about that. Just give me a follow, hit that follow button, and come back on our schedule to learn some cool shit. All right? I'm having a great time in this. Streaming more seriously has been a real gift. It's really wonderful. I need the fucking performance time. Okay? I just did live stand-up for the first time in months on Saturday, and God, it felt so good to be performing for folks and to be getting laughs. Stevie's father, thank you for the sub. Conover Crew, yeah, join the Conover Crew. Is that better than Conover Watchers? You like that Conover Crew? Did I do it in a park? It was an outdoor TV studio area. It was really cool. There's photos of it on my Insta, I think. Oh my gosh, Teasmas is gifting. Thank you so much for gifting, Teasmas. How long have I been doing this stream? I've been streaming for years, but this is my second week on a schedule. Most cities don't have a good hype train system and are relying on hype cars. That is that joke is right up my alley. You're amazing. Thank you so much for that. All right. Oh my gosh, look at all this. Okay, let's keep learning about the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, shall we? KT Gremlin Teeth, you also gifted a sub. Thank you so much. We received a level 5 hype train emoji. Let's see. Choo choo KO. All right, that's what it looks like, I guess. You love watching my gaming streams, and you love my education streams, too. Thank you so much. Let's learn about the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, and then let's play a little video games, huh? Shall we? I wonder what we should play. Well, hold on a second. Wow, there's going to be a really crazy Monkey Island game collection coming out pretty soon. Neat. You want more CK3? We could play more CK3. Can you watch my show in the EU? No, I'm afraid you'll have to torrent it, which I do support. I do support people torrenting the show. Does not make me upset when people do it. Go ahead if you need to do it. Here, you can do it real easy. Look, I was just searching for it myself recently. Here we go. EasyTV.io. Look at this. Some of it doesn't have seeds, but most of it does. You can get seeds for all these. Look at this. Download all these episodes right here. Go for it. Now, do use a VPN if you're gonna do it though. Okay. I don't want your cable company to get mad at you, but hide that. You guys want me to hide that? Adam showing how to reduce my profits. Twitch admins might not appreciate that. I mean, I'm just showing you guys. This is a BitTorrent site. I don't get not paid if you use that. There's not that's not how my payment works. So, nuke the VODs. Nah, I think we'll be fine. I use IVPN. I use it most of the time. I just have it on all the time. I like it quite a lot. Yeah, torrenting is not illegal by itself. Let's say you already own the show on CD-ROM and you just need a backup. Isn't that what people used to say when they pirated stuff? Okay, National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. Certain legal questions may affect implementation of the compact. Some legal observers, let's see here. Okay, mechanism. The agreement would go into effect only after the states collectively represent an absolute majority of votes. Once in effect, in each presidential election, the participating states would award all their electoral votes with a candidate with the largest national popular vote total among the 50 states in the District of Columbia. So this is really cool because it enshrines into law. It abolishes the Electoral College, not through the Constitution, but through using the current legal mechanisms that the states have to determine how their own electoral votes will be apportioned. By having them pass laws, but it doesn't require them to make changes to their electoral vote process. Now it only goes into effect if it passes enough places, right? Which is pretty cool. Here are all the cases, 5 different times where the popular winner did not become the president. It's been supported by many newspapers and things. Whose idea was it? Do we know? History. In 2001, Northwestern University law professor Robert W. Bennett suggested a plan in an academic publication to implement a national popular vote through a mechanism that would embrace yada yada. Law professors Akil Reed Amar and Vikram Amar defended the constitutionality. Wow, so all this has been passed since 2001. That's pretty cool. Organization and so they came up with the idea. This is really cool to see how an idea becomes law. So that was 2001. 2006, John Koza, computer science professor at Stanford, is the lead author of Every Vote Equal, a book that makes a detailed case for his plan. He's a computer scientist. Oh, he's also the creator of the Scratch Card. The creator of the Scratch-Off lottery ticket. Helped establish the organization National Popular Vote. Wow. So they created a group called National Popular Vote, a nonprofit group to promote the legislation. And this all passed by 2006. Man, this has really happened quickly. In 2007, it was introduced in 42 states. Wow. So it's gotten really close already. Prospects. So this is what I remember hearing. Cephalogist. I've never heard this. Nate Silver, probably someone who studies elections, right? The quantitative analysis of elections and balloting. Cephalogist Nate Silver noted that in 2014, all jurisdictions that had adopted the compact at the time were blue states. There were not enough electoral votes for the remaining blue states to achieve the required majority. So, like, that was basically like, all right, it's never going to happen. We'll get all the blue states to do it, but that's going to be it. He concluded that as swing states were unlikely to support a compact that reduces their influence, the compact could not succeed without adoption by some red states as well. Republican-led chambers have adopted the measure in New York, Oklahoma, and Arizona. And the measure has been unanimously approved by Republican-led committees in Georgia and Missouri prior to the 2016 election. So after you win while losing the popular vote, that might make you change your opinion about whether or not, like, well, hold on a second. Well, I liked this. I liked getting rid of the Electoral College until it started benefiting me to have it. On March 15th, Colorado became the first purple state to join the compact. Based on population estimates, some states that have passed the compact are projected to lose 1 or 2 electoral votes due to congressional apportionment following the 2020 census, which might then increase the number of additional states required. And then here it is in the latest session. Man, this is a really good Wikipedia page. By the way, I mean, it feels a little bit weird to use Wikipedia, for this segment of the Let's Learn About segment, but like, God, Wikipedia is still just the best. Really is. So, like, this is an interesting one. Like, let's look at Virginia, for instance. Virginia has 13 electoral votes. It would be a huge step. Virginia is a state whose state house is turning blue. So, like, I'm starting to think this could have a better chance than we thought, because that's something we're starting to see, is that some traditionally, like, the state house, it's not that the state's electoral college vote needs to be blue, right, in order to vote for this. If the state house is blue for long enough, they can enter it. So Virginia, turning Democrat, could eventually enter this thing. Now, there is going to be a question about its constitutionality. Constitutionality. Okay, well, here's one problem. The compact clause of the Constitution states, no state shall, without consent of Congress, enter into an agreement or contract with another compact with another state. This is getting really complicated, but basically you're going to have constitutional scholars disagreeing on whether or not this is constitutional or not. And probably if it passes, I would expect it goes to the Supreme Court. That's going to be the issue. Okay, we've spent a good 2 hours learning about the Electoral College. We're going to call it there. We're going to play a little video games. How about that? How's that sound? Any other questions you guys have about the Electoral College? And man, by the way, thank you everyone for joining. We've really we've gotten close to like doubling our viewer count from the last one. I really appreciate that. If you enjoy this, if you enjoy learning about the Electoral College with me, we learn about new things. I think the next one is tomorrow at 5 p.m. Maybe I should spread them out throughout the week a little bit more, so I'm not doing them right on Monday and Tuesday. And on Thursday, we do a stand-up comedy stream. Thank you for the sub, Flynn75. If you subscribe, you can be in the audience for our weekly stand-up show on Thursday. If you sub, join our Discord, and link your Twitch to your Discord account. The link will be posted in the subs channel there. And give a follow if you want to keep learning stuff with me. Post the schedule on Twitter. I did post it on Twitter. Have I played any more Blasphemous? I got a little bored with Blasphemous, I'll be honest. Necromantic was in the audience last time and can verify it is fun. All right. Before I start playing games, I want to say hi to the lurkers in the crowd. If you are a lurker, say hi. Say hi in the chat. And I want to say hi to you back. Say hi in the chat if you're a lurker. Hi Life Virus. Hi Von Zeal McZeal. Hi DigiGB. Hi Fox of the Future. Hi First Clons. Hi Tactical Sponge. Hi Gizmunk. Rippin' Lips, I can't read that. Hi Carabanog Rabbit. Hi Square Bracket. Hi Hard Drive News. Hi Kobe. Hi Money Guy Dog. Hi U2TM. Hi Waking Profanity. Hi Sarah Sapphic. Hi Wonder J13. Hi Big Mike Sky Blue. Hi The Actually Guy. Hi The Selmar Experience. Hi Top Gunner 150. Hi MX Dishes. Hi Zeg. Hi Beef Pants. Hi Netdesuka. Hi Fierce for Tears. Hi 0 for 1 Games. Hi Mercury Vez. Hi Law. Hi Moribund. Hi Kamen Games. Hi Mephium. Hi Punkit. Hi Darth Yoshi Boy. Hi Dordekoryu. Hi Alyssa Liddell. Hi Captain Jack. Hi Dr. Murasaki. Hi Another Jimmy. Hi Misplaced. Hi Silverfire 10208. Hi Brozart. Hi Kiro 80211. Hi Pimman Toad. Hi Esir Gray. Hi Stapler X. Hi Meta Forever. Hi Robot Adventure. Hi New Navy CB. Hi Omeko. Hi Platypus Sea Surprise. Hi Hamish the Fraying Cool. Hi Wale Peyote. Hi Brady Walters. Hi Traptista. Hi Aquadark. Hi the 777s. Hi I've Been Wrong Before. Hi Dazen47. Hi Oh Boy Sid. Hi MSPaint.exe. Hi Ho. Hi OG-san 703. Hi Alice Tries. Hi Six Penguins. Hi Pyro Infernals. Hi T Stodden. Hi Kang 559. Hi Skunkus. Hi George Glass. Hi Mitzi Live. Hi Groovy Kitty 23. Hi Wrong Scissors. Hi Pseudo Dragon. Hi Flying Ferrets. Hi Jay Denden. Hi 1S2S3 21P2. Hi The Nuclear Bone. Hi The Nerd of Gaming. Hi Fallen Taco. Hi Illyris Dreadtide. Hi Anxious Bubble. Hi Confused Laughter. Hi KT Gremlin Teeth. Hi Diamond MX. Hi Shitty Plays. Hi New Navy CB. Hi Traptista. Hi Hecate Station. Hi. How am I doing? I'm doing all right, Fallen Taco. I've gotten to the point where people are saying, stop, you're going to kill him. You are late, Phoenix Vengeance. I'm sorry, but we're going to play a little bit more. This is a fever dream. Hi, Timonic. Hi, Phil Jemison. Hi, Squalid Snake. Okay, I'm going to pee. I'm going to get some water, and then we're going to play some Spelunky, I think. How about that?